Siomra beag.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sure Look. Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure Look, Sure Listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look. Sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look, sure listen. Oh, very good and very exciting, Benjamin. It's a Sunday over on Siomra beag, so this is being recorded 2 days before it's released. So whatever the big thing that was announced on Monday morning or Monday evening was, we've bloody well missed it. And you might be asking why. And, dear listener, I'll tell you why. It's none of your bloody business where Ben is. So look, we don't have time to get into any of that stuff, because we've loads of stuff to look at, including a teaser trailer for the title of the next Knives Onion movie. And we've seen a teaser? Is it a teaser? For Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft, an American anime-style adaptation, aka Ben's favourite genre. Also, we've had an unnecessary trailer for Moana 2 and Oceans 2. And, would you believe, in the cacophony of trailers and teasers this week, we got the final trailer for Umbrella Academy final season. And, on top of all of that, I have watched Room Service, a short horror film on YouTube with comic book connections.
Sure listen, Michael, if that wasn't enough, and it really isn't for a weekly pop culture podcast.
Oh, very good.
We're also going to be taking a look at the latest Tik Tok trend, Michael. It's hot stuff out there on the TikTokies. It's the Indomitable Human Spirit meme that's been making the rounds, Michael. And I thought we'd take this opportunity to have a look at where that's come from, why it's got a sudden surge in popularity, and more importantly, what does it originate from? Where's that origin point?
Where does it come from, Ben? Never stop, never stopping. Speaking, though, Ben, of never stopping, they're making another Knives Out film. This time, might be Irish?
Who knows, Michael? We've got Daniel being Daniel again as a New Orleans man for some reason. Indescribably New Orleansian Daniel Craig, which is my favourite Daniel Craig, to be honest. This is
much better than James Bond. Fair play to him for coming out of James Bond and doing another thing.
Yeah, he's really survived James Bond quite well, all things considered. Many don't.
Many don't. Look at our mucker Pierce Brosnan, Benjamin. He didn't have another good role until he played Dr. Fate in the great Black Adam. But Benjamin, all of these films, this is something I learned the other day, all of these films are named after a song.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is. And this song, would you believe, is a U2 song.
Oh, no.
Do you see what I've said there, Benjamin? And not U2 as in us two. Not like U2 gobshites, would you ever stop making that podcast? But U2, the musical performing group.
As in, U2, would you ever stop making that music?
U2, would you ever stop making that music, you big pack of gobshites? Not you, Larry, and the other one. The Edge and Bono, specifically. The ones without real names. But Ben, people are saying, what with the Irish connection in the name and the Irish casting, there might be a little bit of Irishness to this one.
There's only one Irish fella cast in it, Michael, isn't there?
I thought there was
one
two.
fella.
Benjamin.
Oh,
right. Well, look, I tell you what,
no,
Benjamin.
Josh. Yeah, sorry, you're
Benjamin,
absolutely right, Michael.
You've put a list of names up there. You just spunked them into the running order while we were speaking.
Yep,
and I'd love you
in.
to have a quick run through them there and see if you can figure out who might be Irish from that list.
Now, Michael, you're being very facetious because the second name on the list there is Josh O'Connor.
Oh, go on,
right.
Yeah.
All right, you little shit.
And who's he?
But first of all, Josh O'Connor is not an Irishman. He's a British actor, you prick.
Yeah. I wasn't talking about him, Benjamin. I was talking about Daryl McCormick, you son of a bitch.
Oh, you got me, Michael. See what I did there? See what I did there? You're absolutely right, Michael. Daryl McCormick is in there alongside young Andrew Scott. Great fella, good innings. We love him in just about anything he's in.
Very
so
good,
he's
Benjamin.
in there.
You've blown the earballs off me there by shouting about Andrew Scott into your microphone. It's very upsetting.
Great. Sorry for shouting at you. Apologise.
You get passionate about Andrew Scott. And Benjamin, who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't, Michael? Great lad. Great lad.
No, I'm asking who wouldn't? Who has it in for Andrew Scott? Because I assume he's going to get killed in this. And that's what we'll have to figure out.
I mean, probably Paul Mescal, right? Because he's the only one contending with him for leads. Although Daryl McCormick, who is now being in everything, Michael, might also give him a run for his money. He was just in that thing with Emma Thompson where he plays a gigolo. That was fun.
Oh, was it called That Thing?
I'm assuming so. I haven't checked, but
Oh, right.
I'm assuming that's a fair assumption on the whole thing. That Thing, starring Daryl McCormick and Emma Thompson. He was in a very good gothic horror Rural Ireland is a Spooky Place drama on ITV about the Magdalene laundries recently. That was very good.
Oh, was he in that thing, The Woman in the Wall? Is that what that was called?
The Woman in the Walls. Yeah, very good. And that was great and unnerving and unpleasant.
Every
as a
Irish
concept.
person over 40 watched that bit.
Yeah, and it made us all uncomfortable, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was part of our penance. We had to do a few Hail Marys and then watch that. To
Yeah,
make up for the
that
80s.
Sorry for the 80s, lads. Apologies. Go
Sorry.
watch that there and cringe.
Sorry for the 80s look. Benjamin, the mad looking cast though, would you believe, Ben, the greatest mystery of this is how has Jeremy Renner recovered enough to be in it?
Michael, my favourite bit of internet faff this week, if you want, or internet shite, Michael, let's
Go
call
on.
it what it is.
Go on.
One guy came on and he clearly stated, nice and plain, that he had the stupidest theory going for the plot of Knives Out 3, Wake Up Dead Men.
Wake Up Dead Men, A Lives Out Mystery.
And Knives Out Mystery, Michael. And his theory was as follows. First of all, in Glass Onion, it's established that Jeremy Renner
Yes.
exists in the world of Knives Out. Because
Is it?
in the second movie, there's a bottle of hot sauce, and it is Jeremy Renner branded hot sauce.
Get out of town.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. That's established in Glass Onion. The second thing is, it has been established medically that Jeremy Renner was in fact dead for quite a while on the table after his snowplow incident late last year.
Oh, really? Go on.
Yeah. The theory that this TikToker had was that Benoit Blanc is going to be brought in to solve the attempted murder of Jeremy Renner by snowplow.
Fucking absolute great stuff. I hope that's the cold open, Benjamin. And in this case, a particularly cold open.
Michael, wouldn't that be a fab cold open? Wouldn't that be chef's kiss?
Freezing cold open. Anyway, look, Ben, we'll probably give it a watch. We've watched all of them and mostly enjoyed them.
Mostly, yeah, they've been grand. I hope it continues the long tradition of there not being any murders in it.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
He's not solving any murders. Benjamin, speaking of a long tradition of not having any violence in them, one of your favourite things of the recent years has been American anime.
Michael, fucking hook it to my veins. Give me an all-British cast of quite lauded British and some American voice actors. Take a beloved Japanese gaming property and give it to Netflix. See what they do with it.
See what they do. Ben, you're going to get notes because we're talking about Tomb Raider, and Tomb Raider is not a Japanese gaming property, obviously. But other than that, no, Benjamin. Tomb Raider was created by IDOS Interactive, the most English bunch of people you've ever met. We're talking
The English are
way
the most
back
English
in
bunch of people I've ever met. But
yeah, they were English, you see.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see what
that's
you
what-
did there.
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Very
There
good.
was English development.
Very
studio.
good.
That's why everything about Tomb Raider is so English. She's a posh
very
British woman.
British.
She's going to foreign countries, taking their stuff and bringing it back for herself, and doesn't seem to have a problem with that.
My favourite bit of apologist fiction that they've created in Lara Croft is that no one does seem to have a problem with that. And Lara herself never stops and goes, is this ethically responsible for me to go around pillaging lesser developed nations at this time in history?
I would be very surprised. Is IDOS Canadian now?
I don't know. You could be wrong.
No, I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. But look, Ben, if I am, someone will at us. Someone will at us on the internet. The internet's great for being atted. I'm positive, absolutely positive, that at some point during the vast Tomb Raider franchise, they have addressed this whole thing.
During the franchise.
During the franchise, I don't know why. I think it's the reaction to talking about the British, Benjamin. It was Core Design. It was Core Design who made it, and they're a game developer based in Derby, which I assume is in England somewhere.
It is. Derbyshire.
And then
to be specific.
Derby. And then they were acquired by IDOS Interactive. So yeah, Lara Croft is very British.
She's
And Benjamin.
exceptionally British.
They've done really, the only thing any of us care about this casting is who's going to play Lara.
And who is it, Michael?
They've made, I think, the right decision, Benjamin. They've picked the prototypical the woman who has played aspects of Lara Croft essentially her entire career, Benjamin.
Is it Gillian Anderson?
55-year-old American Gillian Anderson.
I really wanted to be Gillian Anderson.
That would be fabulous if it was Gillian Anderson. Gillian Anderson is kind of British. She's a lot more British than you might think. Yeah, if you only knew her from the X-Files, you'd be surprised. No, Benjamin, they've only gone and cast Hayley Atwell as Lara Croft.
Oh, people love Hayley Atwell.
Yeah, she's the most Lara Croft woman alive.
She is very Lara Croft, Michael, and you're right. She has played various aspects of Lara Croft outside the IP for decades at this point.
Benjamin, I don't think you've said Lara Croft right once in this episode. I think you've called her Laura Croft. What's going on?
I'm fairly certain we follow a cosplayer called Lara Croft. So I don't know if that's what I'm saying, but
that's a very good cosplay name.
That's for the niche demographic that we have on Instagram, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy that kind of British bashing cosplay niche humor, you might enjoy this podcast. You might have been enjoying this podcast for a while. So if you could do us a massive favor, get down there wherever you're listening and give us a review. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Even if you hate us, get down there, give us a review. Let us know what you think of the podcast. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. Unless you're from the British Museum, in which case just send people over to steal our mics.
They've already done that, Michael. If anything, the British Museum should get things back. Wouldn't it be great, Michael? Wouldn't it be a fab bit of evolution of the Croft franchise if she was just on an apology tour? It's just Lara Croft putting things back.
Tombs and putting stuff back. I'm certain that they've addressed this, Ben. I'm not familiar enough with the broader Tomb Raider landscape. I pretty much stopped playing them around 2005 when it was still sexy woman doing backflips and nicking stuff.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute classic of the genre, Michael. But I think it was addressed in the gritty Origin reboot one that they did, where you're Lara Croft, but you have a pickaxe, and you're pretty much murdering people in horrible, desperate survival porn.
Yeah, that game was spooky and scary, and people got shot with arrows in the neck, and it was very unpleasant. I liked the ones where she was doing a backflip and shooting a tiger with 2 handguns.
Yeah, just let my British heiress explorer be sassy and fun and light and breezy, like colonialism.
Do a flip. Yeah, I like the look of this. I think this is trying to thread the needle between the two iterations of Lara Croft's, the modern, ethical, vulnerable one, and the old school backflips and stealing one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll take that, Michael. Look, if it's anything near as good as Castlevania or Captain Laserhawk, I'm in. I'm sold. You've got me. This continues the strange PlayStation Sega adaptation series they're doing, and I'm all for it. I'm in.
Great stuff. Fabulous.
Sold.
Benjamin, speaking of being all in for series, one of your favourite films of the last 15 years was Moana.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, would you like another one?
Not really. I don't know.
Done.
If
You've got one. It's coming out soon.
That much. Oh,
no,
good.
Too late.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
This time they're going to go.
Interesting.
This time they're going to go to sea.
Oh, the ocean.
Yeah, they're going to go to the ocean and unite the tribes, I think.
Feels wildly decolonizing, doesn't it, as a concept? Reunite shattered tribes of Polynesia. That's interesting. That's ambitious.
You're saying it can't be done, Benjamin?
I'm not saying it can't be done, Michael. I'm saying historically it's actively been fought against by colonizers so that it doesn't happen.
Benjamin, are you making the statement that Polynesian problems need Polynesian solutions? Is that what you're saying?
I think Moana 2 is possibly positing a Polynesian solution to a Polynesian problem by the looks of the trailer.
Hop on the boats and just gather everyone up and bring the gods back.
Yeah, just get the gods back in the biz. One of my favorite narratives, Michael, is the gods are dead, and it splits into 2 distinct subgenres. Then one is the gods are dead. Let's make sure it stays that way.
Yeah,
or
keep them down, the fuckers.
Yeah, fuck those guys, because that's done in the amazing novel series Shadow of the Gods and Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. He writes a series of Norse-inspired sagas, essentially, set in a world where the gods have died. Ragnarok has happened, essentially. and it's now a godless world. And some factions want to bring them back, and other factions are like, no, that would be a disaster. And we saw another fantastic example of the gods are dead, let's keep it that way, in Pirates of the Caribbean, of all things, Michael. If you remember, Calypso is the god of the sea. And in order to give mankind a fair chance, they bind Calypso so that they are not at the whim of her capricious kind of musings. And then one of the key narratives is letting her back out.
Oh, and interrupting the age of sail. Very interesting. I don't know if this is going to be as thematically heavy as that, though, Ben, because this seems to be more about he's back and there's a funny chicken and a funny pig.
Yeah, this falls distinctly into the other category of the gods are gone, but that's not great, so let's get him back in there. Come on. Let's reinstate.
Benjamin, they kind of bring The Rock in at the end of this trailer almost like it's a surprise.
You're so right. You're so right.
Like, oh, yeah, oh, who's this guy? Oh, is he going to be in it? Oh, how exciting.
But we all know that because he was in the first one, Michael, of course.
He was in the first one, yeah. He was one of the main characters. Alan Tudyk as a deranged chicken gets more screen time in this trailer than The Rock.
I mean, fair enough. I think I've had enough of The Rock at this point, Michael. I've had enough of The Rock.
It feels like The Rock's star is waning. People are turning against him.
Not that The Rock star is waning necessarily. He's just leaned too heavily into brand theory and misunderstood the core tenets of what he brings to a film. So it's not necessarily, Michael, that there's anything wrong with The Rock. He's still a very charismatic big man. Although I've heard some scandalous theories on the internet, Michael, that he's actually quite a short man. But we'll get into that another time. He's not, is he not?
He's not.
He's not. He's a big man, is he?
No, he's not. He's a big fella.
He's a big fella, right?
Big
okay. Big fella. Anyway, it's not that. He's leaned far too heavily into the notion that he can be his own personal brand, and he's done things to protect his brand. So he has guidelines in his contracts about what is and isn't allowed to happen to a character played by The Rock. And it just, I'd imagine
that worked out well.
That worked out really well. I mean, that went great. And people probably loved to see him try to blame the studio for the flop of an entire film instead of take a little bit of heat for the thing that he produced himself. Very interesting. Very interesting. Just, look, he's an interesting guy, but yeah, he's shoved in right at the end of this, Michael, as if it's some kind of big reveal. But, pretty standard for Moana too, I think, that we'd have more of Maui.
Yeah, here I am. I was here the whole time, don't worry about it. I was a shark, then I was a bird, but now I'm here. I didn't realise it was The Rock at first. I thought it sounded more TJ Miller.
Oh, that's insulting to The Rock.
Very interesting, really interesting bit of recasting, wouldn't it? I'd love to see it.
Disney just fucks out all its efforts to be diverse and multicultural. And let's get a white guy who has a few SA charges against him in there. Get that in
Benjamin, there is nothing more diverse and multicultural than having a slightly dodgy Canadian play a Polynesian god. That's as diverse as it gets.
That is as diverse as it gets. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Speaking of white men not risking any kind of diversity, Michael, we got a trailer for Wolves.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, right? So I jokingly called this Oceans 2, and I was kind of looking forward to it being Oceans 2, aka the two good ones from the Oceans 11 movies, without all those backing actors, without having to put up with Donald Cheadle doing a Gina Davis impersonation. But it doesn't feel like it's quite an Oceans 11 movie.
This is interesting, Michael. The premise that we got set up in this trailer, and I have to assume that both of these men are taking their names from the character of Winston Wolfe in Pulp Fiction.
They're Mr. Pulp Fiction man. Yeah.
Yeah, they're Winston Wolves, essentially, and he's a cleaner in the Pulp Fiction lore. When you have a problem, you call Winston Wolfe, and Winston Wolfe comes over. Harvey Keitel comes over in a suit with a pencil mustache, doing his best Alfred impression.
Yeah.
And he says, "Okay, let's get this sorted." And then he does things and he cleans it all up. It's not my best.
Not in that voice, but yeah. No.
Yeah.
That was less accurate than our Gina Davis impersonation, but go on.
But anyway, this looks to be a spiritual successor to this. And I watched the trailer for this with my good lady friend, and she turned to me in the middle of it and she said, "This is a very self-indulgent project, isn't it?"
Isn't it just? If they wanted to hang out together, they should have just fucking started a podcast like everyone else. Benjamin, my favorite thing about this trailer, from the perspective of it being Brad and George, is that when Brad and George's partnership started, George was the slightly serious, wiser, suave, older man. And Brad was the kind of scruffy up-and-comer, kind of beautifully handsome, dangerous man. And now they're the same. And that's my favorite thing about this. Now, the fact that there are about 10 or 12 years between them means absolutely nothing, because they're both alphalas. Someday, Ben, we'll be considered the same age. Young people will just be looking at us going, they're the same age, doesn't matter.
You back? Yeah, absolutely, Michael. We will just be a pair of alphas. That's what we're going to end up being. I can't wait.
End product of all of this type of stuff is just you're both alphas. I like the idea that they're dressed the same, they've shut up with the same attitude, they have the same gloves on. It's quite a little amusing scene.
It's very midlife crisis coded.
Yeah.
And I quite like it because they're two men that essentially in this world think they're Brad Pitt and George Clooney.
Yeah.
But have had it pointed out to them by everyone they encounter that you're not as slick as you think. It's not.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
You fucking
there's
dweebs. You pair of dweebs.
Yeah, because one guy is like, because they're both, oh, I'm very cool and suave and I do my job very proper because I'm a professional. And then another guy just points out, guys, you guys are the same person. You're doing the same
You're
thing.
doing the whole
It's
shtick.
yeah, that's just your
Very.
whole bit.
Very.
Look, I'm going to watch it. I enjoy Ocean's 11. I enjoy an Oceans. I'll watch it.
I'll watch it too. Benjamin, speaking of box office though, I tried to go see, what's it called? Furiosa again this week. It's just very hard to get anyone interested in going to see Furiosa. Very strange. Despite the ever-increasing positive reviews, no one seems to really care.
No one wants to go see Furiosa. My good lady friend wants to go see Furiosa, Michael. You could travel up to Belfast there and go off and do that.
Okay, deal.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's on. All right, Benjamin, speaking of, though, travelling to strange and terrifying lands, I stopped keeping track of Umbrella Academy after the last season. So you're going to have to talk us through what's going on in this, because I watched that whole trailer for the Umbrella Academy Season 4, and not one thing made me go, oh, that's this bit. And I've read the comics, Ben.
Now, Michael, I'm going to have to confess to you here, Michael. I've read the comics and seen all of the series. And I also watched the trailer and went, wait, what bit are they picking up here? What? What? Huh? At the end of Season 3, Michael, of the Umbrella Academy, they re-establish their original timeline. The central premise of Season 3 was, we've mucked up things so much in the past that we found ourselves on a splintered timeline, and there's another Umbrella Academy called the Sparrow Academy, and that's not who we were. So it turns out the dick chose 6 different kids to be part, or 5 different kids to be part of his super team, and that's the world they find themselves in. So they re-establish their timeline over the course of Season 3, and they find themselves back in it, Michael, at the end of Season 3. Spoilers for a show that came out 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. I remember they had that showdown where everyone was singing and dancing.
It was a whole thing. And essentially, Michael, they've come back to a timeline where they were superheroes. They seem to have picked up roughly where we came in Season 1, where the group has disbanded to some degree. But then we see in this trailer that they all get in the back of a good old-fashioned... Now, Michael, I don't know what that type of car is. I associate it as the American family car in my mind. Is that a saloon car?
I thought it was a van. I thought they just got in a van.
Was it a van? Was it not one of those
long...
long
just a Commodore
kind of...
Garden van.
Okay, it could be a common or garden van, but they get very excited, Michael, because they say, first mission back. Assuming they're back superhero.
Yeah, they're back.
Which, as always, Michael, begs the question, surely if you've travelled across timelines, surely,
Go on. Yeah.
and you've witnessed every possible variation of time,
Go on.
or even a few of them, right? Splinter timelines, decisions. Did I take a left or a right? Did I say yes to that girl or no to that girl? Did I take that guy up on the invitation of a drink? Didn't I? Etc. And you watch yourself go down all those timelines. Let's not forget, Michael, that Rumour has had an entire different life in the 1960s America at this point. She was a civil rights protester who was married to a different man at one point. And now she's back on her own timeline, and none of that's happened, presumably.
It's all gone very TVA.
Surely, Michael, you would emerge from that and say to yourself, oh, fuck this. What the fuck? Fuck.
I don't know, Ben. I don't know. We kind of had this conversation about Ruby Sunday last week on talking about Doctor Who, because she had also lived a whole life. I think there's a really interesting thing to look at in that kind of time loop, timelines storytelling. Now, I can't think of any examples where it's been really addressed at, but I would love to see someone dealing with the aftermath of that experience. The best I can think of is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Because in Star Trek, The Next Generation, there's an episode where a civilization beams an entire lifetime of memories into Captain Jean-Luc Picard's head. And he essentially lives out the lifetime of a man on this planet, a humble flautist. And it all happens in seconds in real time. But one of the best things about it, and this was from episodic television in the 80s and 90s, but one of the best things about it was that it left a small but lasting impression on Jean-Luc Picard that we saw evidence of later. He continued playing the flute after that.
I suppose it would,
And
wouldn't it?
they didn't... Yeah, I suppose you would, because he'd been a lifetime flautist, Ben. And I would love to see not Groundhog Day 2, but what became of Bill Murray's life. And I know the character's name wasn't Bill Murray, but what became of Bill Murray's life after Groundhog Day? How did he deal with that shit?
One of our favourite things here, Michael, on the podcast is to apply real life logic to a fantasy scenario. The trauma Bill Murray's character from Groundhog Day, as soon as he came out of a loop where he knew everything that was going to happen into a world filled with random happenstance at every possible moment.
Absolutely incredible, Ben. One of the major plot points of the later series in the Dune book series, where Leto Atreides II becomes the God Emperor of mankind, Benjamin, is his prescience is so strong that if he gives into it, essentially he exists outside of time and he knows everything that could possibly happen. And he desperately struggles to not let that happen because that's not living and that would lead humanity down a terrible path. So the most exciting thing for him is trying to lessen his prescient abilities so that things can surprise him, so that surprising things can happen, so that he's not locked into interminably always knowing what's going to happen, which I imagine would be kind of like Bill Murray's character coming out of that time loop.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favourite kind of bends on that kind of classic Groundhog Day trope is the supernatural one where Sam finds himself in a loop in a small town.
What?
And he's constantly looking for the break in the pattern because he knows that whatever is doing the Groundhog Day to him, number one, isn't good because the Winchesters don't have fun supernatural experiences. That's not how it works. But he knows for a fact that something is fucking with him and he's just looking for that break in the pattern. And in the end, it turns out to be a guy who uses a different type of syrup to the one that he's used. He's used raspberry 3 years in a row in Sam's head in the loop. And then one day he uses strawberry instead. And it's just this random thing. But he has a complete breakdown and he's trying to explain to Dean, who is just another cog in the loop at this point, what's happening. So Dean is witnessing this man his brother break down. It's so interesting from Dean's perspective because nobody knows that Bill Murray has done a loop. They don't know.
Except Bill Murray.
Because
Yeah.
even when he does his grand confession to Andy McDowell, the loop resets the next day. He still goes through the reset. So nobody knows. So
No, I
you
don't
must
think he
just
does.
win.
The next day, the last day when he's out of it, he wakes up and he very briefly thinks that it's looped again, but it hasn't.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway, Ben,
you're
we're
right.
talking about time loops for some reason rather than the Umbrella Academy. Look, I'm sure it'll be good. You'll watch it. I probably won't.
Yeah, look, I'm going to watch it because I'm going to see it through, Michael. It's fun. They're good characters, great acting, good old time. Robert Sheehan's in it. He's Irish. He's good fun. Get it.
Grand.
Get it into my veins.
Grand bunch of lads. Benjamin,
Yeah.
I was sent a thing by my good friend and yours, Sean, which I thought was appropriate for the podcast because it's a very interesting backstory about comic book people. So one of your favourite writers, Benjamin, James Tinian Ive,
Oh, he's very good.
you might remember him.
Yeah. He loves a spook.
Yeah. He, 2 years ago, started, would you believe, a Kickstarter to make a short horror film
Oh.
called Room Service with two
Ooh.
other, yeah, exactly, Benjamin, with two other comic book creators of all people. And they teamed up with P.K. Collinette, who you might be familiar with from, I don't know. I'm not super familiar with him, but you might be. Are you?
I'm not, unfortunately. No.
Okay, that's fine. And Elsa Charretier, Ben, who is an illustrator. But anyway, the three of them worked together and proposed making a short movie called Room Service. Tinian wrote it, obviously. Obviously. P.K. Collinette directed, and Elsa Charretier, she did a kind of one-shot comic book, which is also the storyboard for it.
Oh.
And Benjamin, it very much achieved its Kickstarter goal, because this was 2 years ago, and was released to the pledgers, the backers, the 1,000 backers who backed it, about last September or so. But the reason it has come to our attention is that it is now free on YouTube. And we, on this podcast, are big fans of short-form, independent, relatively low-budget horror productions.
We love them, in fact. Great time for all of us.
Love them. Now, fabulous. Unfortunately, I watched it and I didn't really like it. And that's the saddest thing about this whole thing. It's a 25-minute horror short about a man, and he's in some sort of creepy hotel room. And there's something gone wrong in his life, Benjamin. And this, whatever is going on here in this creepy, perfect hotel room with these weirdly masked attendants, is his way out of this trouble he's in. And somehow he's going to be paid, and the amount he's going to be paid for whatever he's going to do in this creepy, perfect hotel room is enough that it's going to set his wife and kids up for life.
Oh, it's a classic. It's a classic. Do this thing for me. You won't survive, but your family will be well set up.
Exactly. And in a way, the fact that it's so obvious that's what it is was my biggest disappointment with this, because it's quite nicely directed. The cinematography is very good. The acting is not fabulous, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
Yeah, unless they were going for a slightly awkward and stilted, but yeah, unfortunately, what you think it is exactly what it is.
Hate that.
Yeah. I was watching it going, this is it's a fun idea. Could have been 6 or 7 minutes rather than 24.
25's indulgent for an independent horror short, ladies and gentlemen. 25's indulgent.
It's a little bit indulgent, especially as it is. I'm not saying a horror film needs a twist, but what do you think has happened, Ben? What do you think's going on here? Just to take a stab in the dark for me.
Just to run through the setup very quickly again.
Yes.
He's in the room.
Yeah.
What's in the room?
He meets an attendant, a masked attendant, and the attendant has told him, that the client wants him to be clean-shaven and neat and presentable.
Okay.
And so he's left to have a shave and put on a nice suit, and the room is all tidy and cleaned up, and the client is a lady.
Oh, Michael, I'm assuming from the horror element of it, there's 3 options here.
Go on.
Organ,
All right.
cannibal,
Which or? Ah, yeah, go on.
sex object, mutilated sex object.
No, she just wants to kill him.
Oh, that's boring.
Yeah, it's kind of, I was kind of waiting for the penny to drop on, oh, she's a vampire, or, oh, she steals his face in the end, or, no, she's just like a rich bourgeoisie Hollywood actress who wants to do a murder.
Ladies and gentlemen, get down there in the comments, because I'm going to make this into a short, so you're going to be hearing this. I want to hear what the better ending for that would be. Write it in the comments below this, okay? I want to hear...
Hold on.
What?
I'm not bad-mouthing it too much, because I'm not saying it's lacking a bad ending. I'm not saying it's bereft of a twist. I don't think... Maybe I'm not understanding it well. Maybe the fact that, to me, I was kind of going... I was waiting for the creeping dread to kind of flow over into what it was really about, rather than what it was obviously about from the first 2 or 3 minutes. And it just kind of didn't... It didn't surprise me. It didn't intrigue me, sadly. Which, it was quite disappointing, because I was really looking forward to it. I actually, when it was sent to me, I went, oh, yeah, I heard about this. I'll put this on the back burner, and I'll really sit down, turn off the lights, in the dark. I'm not going to watch this on my phone on the Lewis. I'm going to try and watch this right. Get myself in a horror setting for it.
Very good.
Yeah. And it didn't do it for me, sadly. Although I love the idea of it being independently produced and independently directed, and kickstarting movies is a really fascinating topic for me. But the actual final product, unfortunately, didn't really speak to me.
I wonder, Michael, is that a symptom of a much larger kind of horror industrial complex where twists are so inherent to the genre at this point that we do kind of sit down and go, because my brain shouldn't go to cannibal, mutilated sex object, or organs. Do you know what I mean? That's not the way my brain should go. But like, we just got Abigail a couple of weeks ago, and that plays with the concept of a classic kidnapping, and it turns out that, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me.
And I did not know Gina Davis was in Abigail. Was she good?
She is.
Was she the little vampire girl?
She's the little vampire girl.
Fabulous.
She's really stretching her range these days. But we are now programmed, Michael, to be like, oh, what is it? What is it? And any character you meet, you're like, oh, what's wrong with you? What's your deal?
Yeah. Do you have?
I personally blame the Kevin Smith movie Tusk.
Tusk is weird as shit. Tusk is a good example of where I'm glad this didn't go. But yeah, it's actually a good shout of a comparison where it's a tense, odd scenario with 2 people, one who seems to kind of only have a bit of a knowledge of what's going on, and one who's more in control of the situation. And it's not a bad comparison. But imagine if Tusk ended with, he kills him.
Yeah, I just don't. Well, first of all, good for Justin Long, because that's what he needed in that film.
Yeah, that would have been better in a lot of ways.
That would have been better. There we go. But yeah, that's disappointing. Michael, nothing will ever horrify me as much in a hotel setting as the real-life crimes of Dr. H. Holmes.
What?
The murder hotel in Chicago. You know about this, surely.
I don't think I do.
Oh, this is fascinating, Michael. So one of the hotels hold an inherent sinister quality for me based on what I learned about many years ago, which is H. Holmes was the name of the guy.
House and Holmes.
He was a serial killer, Michael. And what he did was he had his own custom-built hotel made.
Oh, yeah.
And he had several teams of builders put this together because he wanted to be the only man who understood the floor plan.
Did he have all sorts of peepee holes and stuff?
Not only that, Michael, he had all sorts of death traps set up in the rooms for the guests. So you would
get out of here. This isn't real.
This is absolutely real, Michael. H. Holmes. So let me see if I can pull up because this is well worth a look. So anyway, he went about and he designed this entire hotel, and he was the only person who understood the plan. He murdered the crews who worked on it.
It's like the Joker, Ben.
Oh, it's so much worse than any of that, Michael. So you would stay as a guest in H. Holmes' murder hotel, and you might never come out. If you were, especially if he discovered that you were a lone traveler, he would then go on and make sure that you never left his hotel. So this is a rough breakdown. Obviously, this is a strange sketch, but each of these rooms, Michael, had some kind of trap in them, and a lot of them led down to the basement. They had chutes that would deliver the corpses directly into the basement, where if you survived, he would experiment on you, but if you didn't, he would put you in a pit. And when they eventually caught this guy, they lost police officers and firefighters because they didn't understand the layout of the house, and some of the booby traps got them. H. Holmes is horrific. He did awful things. He was a mass serial killer and very much a real person. And I will never trust hotels because of that.
Benjamin, I've just been reading about this while you've been talking.
Yeah.
This might not be true.
It is true. Get out of here.
But it looks like this might be like tabloid sensationalism from the 1800s. Where
it's a little bit tabloid sensationalism, but he did have a motel.
Yeah. It looks like he possibly did have a murder hotel, but a lot of the people claimed to have been killed were verifiably alive.
Yeah, look, Michael, that's not what I'm on this podcast to do. I'm not here for the truth. I'm here for the sensationalism, right? No,
right.
Look, absolutely sensationalized. However, I did read it as a sensationalized account, and it has scarred me against hotels for the rest of my days, Michael.
True.
But it's
so
fascinating.
I'm reading it. There's an article here by Adam Seltzer from 2017, The True History of the White City Devil. And the kind of extract of that is there's no evidence that Holmes ever murdered expedition goers on this premises. Now, that's exposition goers, not necessarily that he didn't murder anyone. We have to look into this more. But also, I don't want to get into true crime, Ben, because there's nothing I dislike more than actual murderers. That's why I stick to fantasy. Anyway.
That's why you stick to fantasy and the cool murderers and those things.
Yeah.
Michael!
Yes.
One of the most difficult things I think about being trapped in a murder hotel is finding the spirit to carry on, as it were.
Oh. That might be your best segue ever, Ben.
Michael, this week we're taking a look at the indomitable human spirit. And I've done a little graph, Michael, look.
Love a flowchart.
You do love a flowchart, Michael. You're like myself. You
can't see it. I can't see it, but I do love it.
Can't see it because I'm having trouble figuring out the controls here, Michael, and I apologize for that. But yeah, so this trend has kicked off massively on TikTok in the last couple of weeks. It's called the Indomitable Human Spirit. And I can't for the life of me spell it, Michael. I find it very difficult to spell this in all the various iterations that I'm having to deal with. But a fascinating kind of thing. And it's very much based, the current rendition of this is very much based in aliens versus humans. Here's an example. I've included an example in our little slideshow today, Michael, in our little flow chart here. This is a famous panel of Lex Luthor, Michael, as he receives a visit from, I think it's Wonder Woman, Superman, Green Lantern, and some other flying superhero. They're outside, and the speech bubble is just, because he realizes they're there. But this is the meme, Michael. It's aliens watching their human prisoner with 2 broken hands and a missing leg begin to take in 10,000 volts of electricity as they rip out the reactor of the mothership. They thought the indomitable human spirit was a myth. So it's this kind of narrative where aliens, usually the experimenty grey alien types, underestimate the kind of savage ferocity, Michael, of the human spirit. You know, in some ways, this is a very positive meme that's emerging on the internet. Many people citing it as their new favorite kind of example.
Go on.
Or their new favorite meme format on the internet, because it's slightly hopeful, Michael, and it taps into that concept of hope core. One of the reasons that we're kind of seeing that massive surge in popularity at the moment around it is because it is essentially the notion that human beings can overcome anything. Now, not without suffering, because in all of these memes, Michael, the human in question, the exhibitor of the indomitable human spirit, has been grievously wounded, experimented on, or harangued in some form. They've had an awful time, Michael, essentially.
Do you go on, Benjamin? Tom Cruise.
Like Tom Cruise in anything. Very harangued man.
No, like Tom Cruise in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies?
The day after tomorrow.
The kill, die, repeat thing.
Yeah.
Called?
Tomorrow Never Dies.
I don't think it is, but that's you've quoted 2 James Bond movies at me, Michael.
License to Kill, Alien.
License to Kill Aliens. So, yeah, a good example of that is he's having a terrible time. And that's exactly what happens, Michael. That's actually a great example, because what happens at the end is the timey-wimey fucking aliens don't realize this guy's been living in a loop and whooping their butts. And he's done it through just endless Groundhog Daying through suffering. But it's not the only example, Michael, and there are many examples of this popping up around the internet. But the reason that it's probably so popular is it is, at least in TikTok, being treated as something that's very hopeful and positive. We spoke a little bit a couple of weeks, maybe months ago now, Michael, about solar punk as a genre. And it was the notion that human beings eventually crack the renewable energy kind of conundrum for ourselves. And we actually get to live a very peaceful, in balance existence with our ecosystem in some future narratives.
Right.
And they would belong to the overall umbrella term of hope core, or the notion that maybe in the face of all this horrible current affairs news of genocides being taking place against Palestinians, of the global climate collapsing, of permafrost vanishing forever, maybe there's a glimmer of a reason to stay in the game.
Star Trek.
Star Trek, exactly. This is essentially the washing away before the hope at the end. This is the suffering we must go through to make it to the other side. Now, the other important thing to note about this trend is there's nothing new in this trend. It's found a new format, but this is just a variation of a huge kind of super trope, if you want, called the heroic spirit.
Yes, go on.
And the heroic spirit can be summed up in a number of tiny little mini tropes that come together. It's defined to the end. You know, it's that notion of even when the human being is going down, he spits in the face of the oppressor. You know, it's that classic thing of, I'll let you beg for your life at the end. And he says, do it already. And then they spit in the face. It's a classic defined to the end. It's the last stand. It's pretty much Wolverine in anything he's ever been in.
Benjamin, it's the end of Infinity War Endgame, where Avengers Endgame, where Captain America has been thoroughly defeated and his arm has been broken, and he straps his shield back on, half broken, and stands up on the smashed battlefield and faces down the entirety of Thanos' army on his own.
Yeah, and he quotes the oft-quoted line, "I could do this all day."
Yeah, I don't think he
do
does,
this all day.
I don't think he does actually say it in that scene, but yes, exactly.
Well, I'm giving it to him.
Very good.
I'm giving it to him. But, Michael, in terms of heroic spirits, there's probably no better example of kind of the normalness that we're looking at here, because a very important part of the TikTok trend is that it's ordinary humans. They're not superheroes. And I realize, oh man, I'm not good at controlling this thing. I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually getting motion sickness watching Ben trying to move this flowchart around.
Pretty sure you will be. The heroic spirit, on the other hand, is the idea that, you know, the hero will never quit. And the best example of that I can think of in recent memory is Spider-Man.
Go on.
Spider-Man, number one, there's a few ways that writers treat Spider-Man. They either treat Spider-Man, probably not my favorite way, but that Spider-Man is just a schlub who's had great power thrust upon him. And he's just trying to make it through the afternoon, you know? And that's one way to treat him. But in that case, he's a phenomenal example of the human spirit. I've included a picture there, Michael, of the famous panel from the 60s where he's holding up a mountain of metal above his head. And And, he's getting soaked from God knows what kind of liquid in New York. And he's not capable of withstanding this kind of debris. But he knows that if he doesn't, no one else can. So he has to kind of dig deep and push it up above his head and win, and it nearly kills him. And that was repeated many years later in a John Romita run, Michael, where he does the same thing. J. Jonah Jameson is staring him down in the crowd, calling him a menace. MJ is watching on. He can't acknowledge MJ in this. MJ is watching her husband die. He's about to be crushed to death under debris, essentially. And he still manages to pull through and push it over his head. And the other way that they often write Spider-Man is a man who is holding back every second of every day. And if Spider-Man was actually going around and socking people in the jaw with his comparative strength of a spider,
he'd punch
people
your head
just
right
be dying.
off. He'd
punch your head right off.
Yeah.
That in the Superior Spider-Man, when Otto Octavius takes over his body in one of the most bizarre choices ever. But anyway, Otto Octavius is riding around in his body, and he loses his temper with Scorpion, and he just punches his jaw clean off. It's just gone. And Otto Octavius has this horrible realization that every time he fought Spider-Man, because Otto Octavius is just a man with mechanical arms.
Yep.
Every time he got a punch from Spider-Man had been holding back significantly to make that happen.
He's getting a little love
taps. So, and I think in the duality of that, I think my favorite thing about this is, it's being painted as this very hopeful thing on TikTok, where humanity is ultimately very persevering and very survivable. But that's not how it started, Michael. There's some phenomenal... One of my favorite Reddits is writing prompts, where they give you unusual prompts that you might be able to use. And then you get you get authors writing in and giving their take on the prompt. But for a very long time, one of my favorite ones was, why are aliens not coming to Earth? And why are aliens scared of humans? That would pop up every couple of years in different formats. And one of the common internet tropes to emerge from that is humanity are the orcs of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorites, Michael, because, we have a few variations of orcs. We've got Lord of the Rings orcs. We've got Warhammer 40k orcs. And they're just barbarians. That's what they are. They're primal beings that overwhelm you in sheer numbers. And one of my favorite variations on that is, we are the orcs of the universe. We are the beast that will overwhelm you in the corner of the galaxy because we're either too pig-headed, too stubborn to know when we're licked. So we just keep going.
I've read some really good stuff about that, like where imagine the terror of an alien discovering they could, say, blow your arm off. And sure, your arm wouldn't grow back, but a couple of weeks in the hospital, you're back trying to kill them again. Or or you're just eating stuff that you're made of, just shoving it in your mouth and going and theorizing aliens that are made out of thin sheets of semi-membranous energy who could be blown away by a breeze, and then they watch a human fall out of a landing ship, bang off a couple of rocks, dust themselves off and go, hoo-ah!
Yeah, that's one of my favorite bits of this. But then I went digging around, Michael, and I decided to have a look and see, because the Indomitable Human Spirit sounds very positive in that regard, but actually very often we get far more interesting fiction when we are the orc being kind of done as a thing. And I remember there's a guy on TikTok who does a very funny skit between two aliens who are observing human history, and they come across the concept of manifest destiny. Manifest destiny, for people that don't know, Michael, it was the Puritan, or not the Puritan, it was the explorative ideology behind the genocide committed against Native Americans in American history. Ooh. Where manifest destiny was, if you are big enough and strong enough, you take what is yours. And you continue to do that by might and by right. And
I don't know if that's what the people who believed in manifest destiny thought it meant, Ben.
It certainly isn't, but they did believe in an inherent superiority in themselves that let them use violence to take what they want.
Okay.
And it's pretty interesting because when you expand that theory to, oh, wait, what do humans do when they want something? Oh, they wipe out whatever's in front of them, and you go, oh, we probably shouldn't go down there and shake their hands. That would be awful. That really would be the indomitable human spirit, wouldn't it? We just couldn't reason with them as people. And then, Michael, I saw another guy chime in. He said, that's Warhammer 40k.
Yeah. Stay away from those humans. They're fucking the worst.
That's what Warhammer 40k is. So often another species will come up against the Imperium and go, fuck me, you're fucked.
Oh, you're the worst.
God.
You are not a
you're
grand
the
bunch of lads. But, I mean, in 40k, yes, it is very much manifest destiny that the Emperor led humanity to believe that the only way for humanity to thrive and survive in the galaxy is for it to obviously and divinely be the only species.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, Michael. And I love the dichotomy of it as the pair, because on the one hand, it's either an all-conquering force that will have what it wants, one way or the other. That's the indomitable human spirit. Or, on the other hand, it's that classic anime comic book trope of, even when you've got 2 bullets in your kneecaps, you've been run through by the enemy, you're going to do your final stand. You're going to spit in their face. And one of my favorite examples of it recently, Michael, was Gambit in X-Men 97. And he has a perfect indomitable human spirit moment where he's run through by the Sentinel, and spoilers here for the show, and he goes, the name's Gambit, mon ami, remember it. And then he just blows it up. And it's great stuff, Michael. It's awful because we lose Gambit, but great stuff. It's indomitable human spirit to a fault.
Before they retconned the shit out of it, so that Earth was the home of the Phoenix Force and the Iron Fist and Celestials and Kree and Skrulls. And back in the 60s, they used to explain in the Marvel comics that, oh, don't go to Earth. They're way too much trouble to be dealing with. It's not worth it. It's not worth going to Earth as part of your plans because they're just stubborn and annoying, and they have an over-representation of people who just won't go piss off. It's one of the I'm kind of sad that the Marvel comics in particular turned towards Earth actually is special, that it has all of these special cosmic seeds. Earth used to just be a planet that was in a convenient spot at a crossroads and happened to be populated by lunatics. And I was like,
by lunatics, Michael.
Don't get involved with Earth. It's not worth it.
But, like, it's so interesting. So they really have gone back and retconned the shit out of that to be, oh, humans are special.
Yeah.
They are unique. Whereas I think it's so much more interesting to tell stories that are, oh, fuck me, not humans. Oh,
anything but humans. Who brought humans?
Anything but humans. Please. Anything but humans. But, ladies and gentlemen, come here to me. What are your favourite bizarre moments of the indomitable human spirit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get up there and tell us. There's a few different places you can find us. You can find us on the interwebs at www.seomrabeag.com, seomrabeag.com.
It means tiny room in Irish, kind of.
Sort of, a little bit, in a sort of way. You can find us on our other interwebs thing for some reason at www.shouldlookshouldlistenpodcast.acast.com.
It's probably better. It's the better place one.
It's the better way to find us. You can also find us up there on Instagram, which occasionally lets us publish reels that get seen by more than 3 people. Occasionally.
Don't get carried away.
We're up there at Should Listen Podcast. But you can find us on TikTok, our fastest growing social network, and we'll reply to your comment almost certifiably. It'll probably be a little bit sassy, though.
It'll
probably be a little bit sassy.
Might be a little bit sassy.
That's what we're doing these days. What we're doing these days. You can find us up there at Sure Look, Sure Listen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in this week. You can join us next week. We'll be doing a zoomed episode, Michael.
On what?
On Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice?
It's time, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. You didn't say it 3 times. That was very good. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.